Hi everyone, Vacha here from Recording Studio 9 and thanks for joining me again today. And as you can see, I'm still setting up my new recording studio, so I've got the stuff everywhere. I hope you don't mind. But this is at the same time, this is a great opportunity while I have my equipment out to be able to show you physically about Patchbays. So without any further ado, let's talk about Patchbays. To demonstrate how to use a Patchbay effectively, I do have about 2 videos on Patchbays, but this will be a little bit more in detail as well and how to set it up. The Patchbay that I'll be using is the Behringer PX3000. This is a balanced Patchbay. There's also the PX2000, which is unbalanced. So as long as you are aware that the differences. For the purpose of testing, I'm also going to be using my Behringer FCA1616, which is audio interface, and my old phonic compressor. Now, none of this equipment are plugged in or will be plugged in, but I will show you where the cables go and how to actually set up the Behringer Patchbay to accommodate the audio interface with the compressor all coming through the Patchbay, so you can apply compression to any audio coming in either through their inserts or as insert through your DAW. So let's briefly look at the equipment I'm going to be using. This is the Firepower FCA1616 audio interface, which has inserts, and we're going to use the inserts of this audio interface to patch it. We've got the Patchbay, the 48 points, 24 in and out, and a compressor, 2-channel compressor, which has in and out for each of its channels. So we're going to patch them through. If you don't have many compressors or outboard gear, you only maybe one might have, or maybe 1 or 2, you can quite directly bypass Patchbay and connect them directly. And I do have a video showing how you can actually do that already on my channel, so you view that video if you don't want to use a Patchbay. Now the great advantage obviously for the Patchbay, that means you can have multiple effects being patched through and easy access to the back of the units right at the front, so that you don't have to reach out at the back and reconnect everything. You can just patch them through here. So I'm going to connect the insert of the FCA1616 into the Patchbay, and the Patchbay we're going to connect the compressor into it as well, and we're going to use patch leads to show you how we can utilize that. So let's get all the cables connected. This is an insert cable. It has an TRS on one end that splits into 2 TS cables. So stereo plug into 2 mono plugs. Basically one will be in and one will be out of the unit. We find the insert section and we just plug the stereo side right in. And basically what that does is it cuts the signal inside the chain of signal from the microphone to the analog to digital conversion, except it comes out here. So by plugging this in, we break the chain, and now we have the signal that comes out on the red, and we can return it back onto the yellow. So let's connect these 2 insert cables in and out into our Patchbay. Now the Patchbay, you need to have the setting either normal, or I prefer half normal. And as I explained in the slideshow what the differences are between normal and half normal. And I'm just going to use the first channel for it. So it comes out into A, down into B. So what basically happens, the signal will come out to the top, and then because I've set the setting as half normal or normal, that means internally this red one is connected to the bottom. So that rejoins the connection. That's automatically. Without having anything plugged in here, that means the signal will come out to the red and then straight down and then back out to the yellow. You probably wonder what's the use of that? Well, that means we can now break it again at the front to introduce our compressor into the signal chain. So next we have we have to make the connection to our compressor. If it's a single channel compressor, you only need one cable, and make sure it's a TRS cable as well, balanced, so you don't introduce any noise into it. Of course, that depends if your gear are balanced as well, but it's always good to have balanced regardless. So as you can see in the example, our 13 and 14 we designated for the compressor. So we have 13. By the way, I use these tie clips, colored tie clips at the end of each of the cables if they're the same color cable, indicating what they are. So I've got, as you can see, I've got green and red, so I can identify the cables. Just a tip in the middle. So that's our input. Okay, so that's a signal from the front will appear at the back here, because remember, our 13 and 14, 15 and 16 are actually a true connection. The A and B, the top and the bottom, never connect to each other, either at the front or at the back. Basically, it allows the back of this compressor to appear at the front on the patch bay. So that's our input. So that means a signal coming here will go into our input. And the output of our compressor will appear at the output at the top, A. Remember, it's quite common, and it's sort of like a rule that A is always output, B is always an input at the front. So signal coming out will appear at the top on A, and signal coming in will come from B and be inserted into our compressor. So now we have our compressor connected. So the output of the compressor is going to A, number 13, and the input of the compressor is connected to B of 13 as well. So let's have a look at the front. So we have 1 and 2 as an insert signal for channel 1, and 13 and 14 as output and input of our compressor. So as you can see, now we can patch through using, again, TRS patch leads. These are shorter leads, 30 centimeters. Sometimes you can get a 1 meter one as well, so you can reach from one end to the end. And we are able to now connect them through. So in its current state, any microphone connected to our microphone input here will come out to A1, and then automatically, because it's normal connection, will go to B and then back into our converter. But if we plug this white cable here, now we broke that signal chain. Now we have our microphone signal appearing here and going nowhere. Right? Well, in normal, if you have selected this as normal. And now, so what we can do is we can feed that signal to the input. Remember, 13B is the input of this compressor into 13B. Now the signal will come out from A and feed into B and into the input of the compressor. Now the compressor will actually start receiving signal of the microphone, but the signal is still broken because you're not going to hear anything, because we don't have a signal coming back. So we can use another patch cable, and now we have the output of the compressor right here. So our signal of the microphone is gone through the compressor, being compressed, and now appear here and going nowhere. So we feed that back to the insert of our microphone. So now our microphone signal coming from channel A will appear on the A1 through that white cable into the input of the compressor, be compressed, come out of 13A with the red cable, and be fed back into the signal chain of the channel 1 and then out into the USB. If you wanted to use our second channel, then we could connect more cables of the second channel of the compressor into 14, and then we will actually able to process the same thing for channel 2 and all the way up to 8. So now let's assume that we want to actually connect our synthesizer, which is connected to 9, as you can see in the example of the slideshow, coming in and into the input, line input 5 of our audio interface. We can break that. Now our synthesizer signal is appearing here. So we can, let's say we want to compress that synthesizer signal. What we can do is plug that to the input of the compressor, and then the output of the compressor, compressed synthesized audio, is now here, and we can feed it back to it. Or, as I explained, because this is a half normal, even like this, connected, the synthesizer sound is actually still connected to channel 5 of the audio interface, line level. So we are still able to record without compression. So here's a great trick why Patchbay is quite useful in half normal setting, is that you can take the compressed signal and put it into the next channel. So now channel 5 in your DAW when you're recording is the raw signal from your synthesizer, and channel 6 is the compressed of that signal. So now you've got the original signal and the compressed signal on 2 different channels. That's what Patchbay allows you to do. It's one of the tricks that I usually use, especially when recording microphones and guitars, if I want to compress things, but I still would like to have the raw copy of the signal in case I change my mind, in case I don't like the compressor later on, in a couple days later. So this allows me to have both options, and if I'm happy with the compressed signal later on, then that's fine. The track can be muted or deleted of the raw data, and I still have nice compressed. But if I didn't like it, I would still have the original on channel 5, compressed on 6. Now another option is, this is a 2-channel stereo link but dual mono compressor as well. That means if I have it out, I can control individual settings of each compressor. By pressing it in, they link together. That means all the settings are controlled by one side only. This side will not have any effect. But let's say if I'm recording a vocal and I want really good compression, I can turn it into dual mono, 2 individual compressors. What I can do is, let's say I have the signal coming out from the microphone into the input of the first compressor, the output of the first compressor, feed it into the input of the second compressor, and then the output of the second compressor into the mic. So now my vocal is double compressed. So I can have a very subtle fast attack compression on the first one to capture all the peaks, but not reduce the dynamics, just capture the peaks, and then higher ratio, slower attack to really smooth out the vocals using the second compressor. So as you can see how useful a Patchbay becomes once you know how it's all set up. So you can really use multiple patchings to change your signal chain of your audio to achieve what you like to achieve. Well, I hope this was more useful for you, and in more detail. Now you know how to actually set up and use a Patchbay, and especially with my example of the Firepower FCA1616, which has 8 inserts. It'll give you so much flexibility with a Patchbay. Now you know how to do it. So if you were thinking of using a Patchbay and didn't know how to, I hope this was helpful. If it was, make sure you give me the thumbs up, and feel free to comment below in regards to anything. If you have any other further questions you'd like to ask about Patchbays, but I think with all my slideshow and explanation should have been sufficient. And if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to my channel as well. And you can also visit my website, recordingstudio9.com. And until next time, as always, thanks for watching and have a great time making music. Cheerio. Now I have to start packing up and finishing it off. Nothing but the Patchbay.